Everybody, Alicia Panzarella here, taking a look at one of our data collection techniques known as journaling. Now, this is listed as a qualitative approach to data collection, but I think in some ways it also lends itself to a quantitative approach. So what exactly is this technique? Well, really, it's this continuous narrative that provides lots and lots of insight into a student and potentially a teacher's daily thoughts and experiences. And it's a really nice way to progressively see the student's thoughts from day one of a lesson, a unit, whatever it happens to be, until the very end, and to see that growth from start to finish in this narrative style format. So like I said, there are some different types where you have the student, the teacher, but then there's also a class journal, which I don't know if I'm late to the party with this, but I've never heard of it before reading that chapter 5 article that we were given. But I just think this is so neat because it's this very quick and cohesive way to get your entire class's thoughts in one single place. You don't have to go hunting for it. You don't gotta click on 50 different tabs on Canvas. It's just one concrete place. So you give them the question, whatever you want them to respond to, and then everybody can provide very quick thoughts, ideas, perspectives, feedback, diagram, or pictures if you need that, especially in science. We do a lot of stuff with diagramming. I even have kind of an example here where they have this idea and then 2 students' response. But this is just so cool because it's very quick formative assessment for everybody in that one place. And I intend to implement this very quickly because I truly just think this is awesome. So what process and procedures are really necessary for all of these different types of journaling? So really now just focusing on the student or the teacher. And like I said, it is going to be a daily narrative. So you're recording of all events, thoughts, and feelings. Like I said before, it's showing a progression from start to finish. But it is ultimately a collection of all of those assignments that you're giving, all of the thoughts that they have on them, their descriptions, their analysis of whatever you're giving them, and their interpretations, once again, of, assignments, prompts, problems. It's all in that one spot. And this is one thing that we do a lot, at least in my classroom for physics, is we have a lab notebook, which I think pretty much completely parallels a journal. And it's the one thing that I'm quite a big stickler for. And what they have to do is when they come in every day, they have a date, they have the activity, they have the learning goal, but then every single thing that is physics related goes into that notebook so that they have that progression from start to finish. They can see how everything has built on itself. How did we get from, this discovery lab to now this implementation stage? But along the way, they have that narrative. It's not just like this collection of data, but it is their thoughts, their conclusions, their data analysis, all in this one nice, easy, chronological spot. Now, as far as the teacher reflection, again, it can be that daily perspective. So what did you observe that day? And then, what do you want to reflect on in order to, build on tomorrow, build on any future unit or any future lesson? And obviously we have that analysis and evaluation piece that we're all too familiar with. But one of the things that I think the journal does very nicely is it allows you to revisit your thoughts. Because, too often we go through a day, we write down sticky notes, we jot down things, but we do 5,000 different things in a day. And sometimes it's hard to remember those little pieces that had big impacts. So I think having the journal and having it in this one kind of concrete place allows us to go back to any day that we need, revisit and say, oh, that was that small piece that I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. So I really, really like the journals for that aspect. So, like I said, this is qualitative data collection because what you're really focusing on, as far as the journaling aspect, is that narrative, which is going to be the words that the students are providing. And the questions that the journal really help to answer are ones that focus more so on students' feelings, their emotional reaction, and a lot of the attitude and engagement questions that were posed in the discussion board. So I did go back and look at our week 3 questions that people had posed and tried to see, where does this fit in? And what I really found was that a lot of the questions that I was already thinking were being paralleled in that week 3. So, like I said, this could really answer the question of how does a student feel regarding this? How does a teacher feel regarding that? But mostly, what is the student's attitude towards this technique or assignment, whatever you have it to be working on, which is something that came directly from that discussion board. Same thing, what is their reaction to the assignment? Are they writing that they hate this, they don't get it, or is it really clicking? And then one thing that came up kind of over and over and over again was how is student engagement being affected? And I think that progression, that progressive narrative that you're seeing in the journal will lend itself very nicely to that student engagement piece. Same thing with motivation. But then I got to another person's upload and I saw that they had actually specifically talked about observational strategies. And that observational strategies can be for students or for teachers. What is the student reporting on when you give that demo? What did they see? And here in this journal format, we have that narrative right there. So I think that journaling really, really lends itself nicely to a whole plethora of questions that involve, feelings, attitudes, and reactions. So some strengths and weaknesses. I do think there are a lot of strengths with journaling. You get a much deeper insight into the student's thoughts and reactions. You get that daily data, and you ultimately get that progression of thought. So what I said is other methods, and obviously not all methods, but there are other methods that are kind of like very singular events. You have one summative unit assessment. You have one, maybe 2 interviews, but they're very singular and in that moment. Whereas this method is continuous and it's ever growing. And I think it does a good job of showing the whole picture, not just kind of like a snapshot. But with that comes a weakness. It is a tremendous amount of data to sort through, which means it's going to be time consuming. And you also have to have accessibility to the journal or the notebook. I know my kids take their notebooks home every day, so sometimes it's hard to get them, and especially get them for an extended period of time if you want to do this data collection. And I'm kind of curious, that article once again kind of reported that if you're doing 1 hour of audio, to expect 8 to 9 hours of transcript work. And, is this ratio going to kind of be the same if you're looking at notebooks? Now, as far as looking at the validity, reliability, and ethical concerns, my concerns honestly are very minimal. I think this method really looks at validity from the dependability aspect, because dependability, was looking at, can you account for changes within your data collection, within the scenario. And since this is ever growing and ever changing, that dependability piece really is there. And I think it also lends itself easily to triangulation, because you're not only going to have that quantitative data that you could be collecting from the lab notebooks, formative assessments, summative assessments, but then directly linking them to their thoughts, feelings, reactions from that day. And it also has a big reliability piece, because that looks at prolonged exposure and persistent observations, which again, you're getting from day 1 to the final piece. So that prolonged exposure is there. And as far as ethical, this is very easily and effectively integrated into lessons. So it's never going to hurt your students' ability to kind of grow within the unit. So I don't think there's an ethical concern, and they can still maintain anonymity. So overall concerns don't really have a whole bunch, but I do hope that you like journaling data collection as much as I learned that I did.